Bonjour à tous, bonjour à toutes, bonjour Marjorie.
Bonjour François, bonjour à vous.
C'est toujours un grand plaisir pour moi de vous accueillir ici, à Montpellier, sous un soleil printanier ou un été indien. Nous sommes dans le contexte de la DigiWorld Week. C'est un événement qui a été créé par l'IDAT, sa deuxième édition, avec la complicité de la Commission européenne, de la région. Et c'est un préambule à la 37e édition du DigiWorld Summit, 37e édition. On est vraiment un vintage. Et pour moi, c'est un grand plaisir parce que ça fait la 5e fois, en tant que président de l'IDAT, que j'ai le plaisir d'ouvrir cette conférence. Et merci Yves de me renouveler mon contrat tous les ans. C'est une semaine qui est importante pour nous. À l'intérieur de la DigiWorld Week, il y a une quarantaine d'événements, on en reparlera tout à l'heure. Au sein du DigiWorld Summit, il y a 120 speakers, des conférences, on va revenir dessus. Et nous avons à peu près 3000 personnes qui vont venir partager ce moment avec nous. Et au sein du DigiWorld Summit, 1200. Mais avant de commencer, lancer officiellement, j'aimerais qu'on se lève tous et qu'on observe une minute de silence pour ce qui s'est passé vendredi, ce qui nous a touché dans notre chair, notre cœur. On a tous des amis. Et avant de commencer, prions et ayons une pensée pour toutes ces victimes innocentes qui sont plus parmi nous ou qui souffrent et leurs familles.
Merci à vous. Et c'est difficile forcément d'enchaîner derrière de telles circonstances, mais la vie continue, le show continue aussi, donc je suis absolument ravie d'être avec vous pour la deuxième année pour assister à ce cycle de conférences, à cette DigiWorld Week. On va entrer dans le vif du sujet dans quelques instants, mais d'abord, quelques petites précisions. Vous attendez tous, je le sais, Jimmy Wells, il sera avec nous sur scène dans quelques minutes. Cette session sera en anglais ce soir, donc n'hésitez pas à vous munir d'un casque de traduction si ce n'est pas déjà fait, si vous en avez besoin dedans. C'est une session qui est la plus interactive possible, donc vous le savez, vous pouvez réagir à tout moment, ça se passe sur Twitter, avec le hashtag ce soir DWW15. On utilisera un autre hashtag demain, mais ça, on verra ça étape par étape. Et puis évidemment, vous aurez la possibilité de lui poser vos questions en fin de keynote. Donc n'hésitez pas à commencer à les préparer parce que vous serez extrêmement sollicité ensuite. Jimmy Wells restera aussi avec nous pour la suite des débats. On va parler MOOC, on va essayer de comprendre quelles sont les nouvelles frontières de l'éducation, quels sont ces disrupteurs en effet de l'enseignement et quelles sont ces nouvelles frontières de l'économie de la connaissance. Mais d'abord, François.
Merci Marjorie, et je tiens encore à remercier la Commission européenne pour son soutien, la région et bien sûr la très dynamique French Tech et la métropole qui nous aident à mettre en place tous ces événements. Alors comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, l'IDAT, ce n'est plus seulement les télécoms, ce n'est plus simplement l'Internet, mais aussi c'est toute la transformation digitale au niveau des usages, au niveau de l'économie, au niveau de l'industrie, qui a complètement bouleversé notre vie. Et d'ailleurs, cette semaine, dans la Digital Week, il y a une quarantaine d'ateliers où on va parler d'Internet des objets, on va parler de médecine, on va parler de vin connecté, on va parler de brosse à dents connectée, tout ce qui touche un petit peu le milieu de l'innovation numérique, avec le centre du monde numérique cette semaine, qui est Montpellier. Et je tiens à saluer d'ailleurs tous les étudiants dans la salle parce que Montpellier est une ville qui est très très dynamique. Et bravo, et on est ravis toujours de venir pour la 37e fois de suite donc à Montpellier pour cette DigiWorld Summit. Now I'm going to turn into English. We thought with Yves Gassot and all the team who could really be the person that could launch this event. And without thinking too much, one name came, Jimmy Wales. It's my real pleasure now to welcome Jimmy Wales, the founder of Wikipedia. Big round of applause for Jimmy. France has a heart. Jimmy, I'm not going to describe all your life because I see you as a web pioneer, a web celebrity, you know, we can say that. But more than that, you're a true innovator. And I'm really pleased to welcome you today in France because you know how arrogant we are sometimes, but we have invented encyclopedia. We've started by Diderot, d'Alembert, then we had Larousse, and then we had Encyclopédie Universalis, and then Jimmy came with this fantastic idea to share the knowledge. So not only you've scaled what your predecessors have done, but also you have changed our relationship with knowledge. Before, knowledge was an asset to keep for yourself. After Wikipedia and all what you've done with the company or the association, we'll talk about that later on, the knowledge became an asset that the young generation has shared to become stronger. And that's something that really changed our life, and beyond the usage or beyond our life, the way also the world innovates. And you're also a tireless innovator. You work on new projects, you will talk about later on, but now I speak enough. Jimmy, the floor is yours. Thank you very much to be with us.
Okay, thank you. Great. I have two clickers. I don't know which one works. They all work. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for having me. I've got several different things to talk about tonight, and so I want to get started and give you an overview. The basic theme, the thing that I'll return to again and again, is how the power of ordinary people, of word of mouth, is more powerful than ever before. And I want to talk about all the things that I've built, but particularly in the context of how we didn't do it with traditional broadcast advertising, but rather with people talking about what we do. Because this is kind of a theme that ties together all of my work. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Wikipedia and where we are today. I'm going to do a little special detour to discuss China, because it's always a very interesting topic, and there's some recent developments in China that I think are worth talking about. I'll talk about the next steps for Wikipedia, and in particular, I'm going to focus very heavily on mobile, because it's the most important area of growth for us. And then some of the lessons that I've learned along the way, and how that leads me to the next project, which is the TPO.com social network, which I'll explain to you very briefly at the end. So we'll just dig in here and get started. This is the original vision statement for Wikipedia, for all of us to imagine a world in which every single person on the planet is given free access to the sum of all human knowledge. And that's what we're doing at Wikipedia. And every piece of this vision statement is important. When I talk about every single person on the planet, I talk about free access and what that particularly means to us, the sum of all human knowledge. So what is Wikipedia? Wikipedia is an encyclopedia. This is very important. And yes, we're very much in the tradition of Diderot and the original French encyclopedias. The idea here is to take all of knowledge and summarize it. So Wikipedia, there are many, many things that Wikipedia is not. Wikipedia is not an open free speech platform. Wikipedia is not a video hosting site or blogging. It's a very particular type of reference work where the depth of the material varies depending on the context. And we have a lot of very specialized rules within Wikipedia to try to achieve the highest quality. when I talk about free access, what do I mean by that? Well, free access for us means more than just doesn't cost anything. We come originally from the free software movement. That's really our intellectual roots. And in that movement, there's a saying, free as in speech, not free as in beer. Free beer is great. Everybody loves some free beer. You have some drink, and it's great. Someone gave you something for free. But what we're talking about is more fundamental than that. It means that everything in Wikipedia is freely licensed, meaning you can copy it, copy, modify, redistribute, and redistribute modified versions. And you can do all of those things commercially or non-commercially. So when people are contributing to Wikipedia, they aren't just contributing to this one humanitarian project. They're contributing to a storehouse of knowledge that can be reused and repurposed for all kinds of things. So it's truly a global approach that tries to be as inclusive as possible. And what do I mean by the sum of all human knowledge? Well, we basically mean that Wikipedia is a summary. It's not a textbook. It's not a book on every topic. Wikipedia entry has a certain length, a certain size. We obviously want to be very comprehensive, but we also want to be very concentrated. We want you to be able to come and learn the basic information that you need to know, and then you can dig further. You can go into deeper resources. You can go and do further research with that basic knowledge. So we've been around for nearly 15 years now. Our community has written over 34 million articles, and that's across 288 languages. Now, this number, I feel, is a little bit optimistic. 288 is the number of websites we have set up, but really there's only about 230, 240 languages that have 1,000 entries or more. So we still have a lot of languages that are very, very small, and even 1,000 entries is still a very small encyclopedia. So when we look at the distribution of Wikipedia around the world, we see that it varies quite a bit, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. One of the things that we see is that we have several large languages, including French, which are over 1 million entries. These are the real powerhouse Wikipedias, and they are in the languages that you would expect. Large European languages are by far the dominant. We have 46 languages with at least 100,000 entries, 120 with at least 10,000, and then 223 with at least 1,000. That number's a little bit out of date. It's actually a little bit higher than that now. So you can see that although Wikipedia is very large and very multilingual, it is still uneven around the world, which is why one of my main interests is how we can help Wikipedia develop in the languages of the developing world. And there's a lot of work going on in that area, and there's going to be a lot of advancement in the coming years. One of the things that people are always interested in is China. So China has a very large Wikipedia community, and the Chinese language is one of the largest languages. But of course, China operates one of the most comprehensive censorship efforts of the internet. From a while back, Wikipedia was completely banned in China for about 3 years. It became more open in China around the time of the Beijing Olympics. At that time, obviously, many, many foreigners were coming. China was more open. They wanted the foreigners to be able to access websites that they're familiar with, and so they opened Wikipedia, they opened the BBC website, etc. And then we had a sort of an equilibrium for a long period of time where Wikipedia was open, but they filtered certain articles. So they blocked the entries on things like Falun Gong or Ai Weiwei, the artist who's always making fun of the government, Tiananmen Square, anything discussing or mentioning even a possibility of Taiwanese independence. These were the things that were blocked in Wikipedia, and we made it a principle, a very firm principle, that we will never participate in censorship. And so we didn't cooperate with the censorship, but they control their own network, and there's not really anything that we could do about it. Eventually what happened is just this past summer, just as we were making a move to become secure everywhere, China blocked us again. So all of Wikipedia is blocked in China, all of Chinese Wikipedia. And now that we are HTTPS, so we're a secure website, what this means ultimately, so it's just like when you go to your bank. Someone can see, if they're spying on your connection, they can see that you're talking to your bank, but they can't see which pages you're looking at. They can't see the data. Now Wikipedia is like this. So the Chinese government no longer has, as a policy option, to simply block some pages in Wikipedia. They have to block all of Wikipedia or none. And so right now they've chosen to block all of Wikipedia, but they've invited me to Beijing. I'm going in December and I hope to have talks with them to persuade them that this is bad public policy and that they should open up Wikipedia. Well, we'll see. Watch the news, and we'll see what happens at that time. But hopefully that they will, again, recognize the value of Wikipedia and allow us to operate there. Even under these circumstances, we would never agree to participate in censorship. And so we are really at a real moment of a battle of wills. But I'm very patient. So are the Chinese, but I'm very patient. One of the things that has happened, though, sort of an amusing thing to see, is that even though Wikipedia in most markets is in the top 5 and almost everywhere in the top 10, we've only been about a top 50 website in China. The reason for that is because of the 3 years of being banned. We didn't have a chance to grow at that time. Other competitors became more well-known and popular, but still, 50 is not too bad out of 2 million websites in China. But even though we're less famous in China than we are everywhere else in the world, we have had a kind of a cultural impact in China. Someone sent me this menu from Beijing. If you can see, it says Wikipedia fried with eggs, beef brisket in Wikipedia flavor. I think this one's from Shanghai. So someone emailed me this, and they said, Jimmy, what does this mean? And I said, I have no idea. But I said, I do know who will know, and so I emailed some of the Beijing area Wikipedians, and I said to them, what does this mean? The Wikipedia bread company, it's like a Starbucks, it's quite nice. And they emailed me back and they said, Jimmy, we have no idea. So all these are different kinds of food items, and they don't sound anything like Wikipedia. So the only thing that we've managed to guess at is that a lot of these started appearing, again, around the time of the Beijing Olympics, and it's around the time when Wikipedia first became available in China, so it wasn't very well known. And we think that a lot of restaurant owners, knowing that millions of foreigners were coming, they thought for the first time, oh, we should translate our menu. So they went onto the internet to find out how do you say a certain kind of mushroom in English. And of course, whatever you type into a search engine, what do you find? Wikipedia. So we don't know for sure. As for me, I like it spicy, so, spicy Wikipedia, steam eggs with Wikipedia. So going further and thinking about the growth of Wikipedia and the size of Wikipedia in many places all around the world, it's very interesting to look at which countries have the most entries per capita, or I shouldn't say countries, I should say which languages. So compared to the number of speakers, what are the most active languages of Wikipedia? And I've selected a few of them. These are not all of the most active languages, but a few of them because I think it illustrates a certain point. Some of the top languages in Wikipedia per capita would be Icelandic, Estonian, Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish. So why? Why would these countries have very, very active Wikipedia communities? Well, you might think, they have really good broadband and very good educational systems, and those things are true. But I also think there's another reason. In the wintertime up there's not much to do, and they sit by the fire and they edit Wikipedia. So, well, this is just a joke, but I do think that when we look at the statistics for Wikipedia in terms of the editorship and participation, we actually do see a fairly strong weather effect. When it's very nice outside, people like to go outside and do something, and if it's a bit cold or rainy, people stay in and play on the internet. So it's also interesting to look at the global content comparison. So there are some differences in the content of Wikipedia around the world. As it turns out, most of the differences in content actually show a greater similarity than difference. So, for example, in many places around the world, you'll see certain politicians are more popular or more interesting in certain countries. So you'll see, for example, my favorite example is Nick Clegg. He's the former deputy prime minister in the United Kingdom. And if you look at the traffic patterns for where people are reading about Nick Clegg, it's mostly in the United Kingdom because he's not famous on the world stage. He's famous in the UK, and so people are interested there, but not elsewhere. If you look at something like David Cameron, it's much more even around the world because as prime minister, of course, his name is out in many, many contexts. So what does this show? It doesn't show that British people have inherently different interests. It just shows people are interested in their own politicians. And a lot of the differences we see in what Wikipedia readers are interested in really is a difference that shows a similarity. But we did a little bit of a study, a very basic study, looking at the most popular categories in Wikipedia. So we looked at the top 100 pages by traffic to see what were some of the things that people were most interested in. And the languages here, just to show, I don't have a laser, so English, Chinese, Japanese, French, German, Russian, and Spanish. And there's a couple of things I wanted to point out. So if you see in the Japanese pop culture, the green bar, very, very popular. And if you know anything about Japan, this makes sense. Pop culture is a huge part of Japanese life. They love English pop culture. They love Japanese pop culture. It's a really, really big part of Japanese activity, and so it's natural that the Wikipedia has a lot of interest and a lot of traffic there. The other one I wanted to note is that, of course, as we know, sex is always a topic of interest on the internet. As you can see, it's in the top categories for all of the languages except for French and Spanish. I was puzzled about this, but then someone explained to me it's because the French and the Spanish are actually having sex. And everyone else is just reading about it on the internet. So I thought, it's a very, very difficult time here in France, and I was a little concerned about some humor in my talk, but then I thought about this joke, and I thought, actually, now is a wonderful time to celebrate being French, and that's my belief. So Wikipedia has around 500 million unique visitors every month. This is a huge number of people, and it a little bit boggles the mind to understand how comprehensive the readership of Wikipedia is. And it's something that's really, really important, but there's also a long way to go. And so one of the huge trends that we see right now is mobile. And particularly in the developing world, mobile is incredibly important and becoming more important all the time. Oftentimes, though, when you start to talk about mobile, here's what a lot of people know about mobile. You go and you look in the newspaper and you read a story. Mobiles give Africa's farmers the chance to set out their stall. Or how cell phones are helping fight malaria. So most of these kinds of stories are about very poor people. So the first story is about people texting across town to find out the best price for their crops, and they can cut out the middleman, or they make sure they're not getting cheated by someone because they know the general market price. How cell phones are helping malaria. Again, you can text the health authorities and say, oh, in our village, we've got a problem with the mosquitoes. Oh, in our village, we've got a couple of cases of malaria. Can you send someone? Well, this is the way a lot of people think about mobile in Africa. And these things are true enough, but I think that they cloud your mind. If this is the only thing you're thinking about mobile in Africa, you're missing something really big. And you're in good company, because even in my industry, I feel that a lot of people are really missing the revolution that's happening right now in Africa. So here's what most people don't know. This is a phone. A friend of mine bought this phone for me a couple of years ago. It's a 3G Android phone. You can do all the apps on it. You can play Angry Birds. And it cost, at that time, around $75. Today, this phone is under $50. There are other phones that have come out since then that are under, the cheapest phone I've found so far is under $40. And in fact, some of these inexpensive cell phones have specifications. So if you go down the specification list and you look at the number of pixels on the screen, you look at the memory capacity, you look at 3G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all of those features, they match tick for tick for tick for tick the original iPhone. So the original iPhone, of course, is not as good as your brand new, shiny iPhone 6. But that original iPhone, if you remember when it came out, it really changed our relationship to the internet online. It really made it more practical for the first time to actually use the internet in a normal, routine way on your mobile device. And obviously that smartphone revolution has had an enormous impact on all our societies. And the point is, that's happening right now in the developing world. They're selling hundreds of millions of these devices, and it's going to bring the internet to people much faster than we had ever realized. When we look at internet usage, let's just look at one country, Nigeria. In 2000, only 0.1% of the country was online. It was growing throughout the 2000s, 3.1%, 16.1%, 26.5%, and I would say that by the end of this year, that number should be between 40 and 45%. So this explosion is happening of access to the internet everywhere. And one of the reasons for that is bandwidth. Again, talking about Nigeria. In Nigeria, in January of 2002, the entire country had 72 megabits per second bandwidth. Just for comparison, at my home in Florida, I have a 150 megabit connection. It's fiber optic to the home. It's really nice. I wish I could get that in London, where I mainly live. But you see, it's a very small internet connection for an entire nation. But that has been increasing, and it increased to 693 to over 12,000. It's even higher now. So what's happened is they're dropping cables, fiber optic cables under the sea into Nigeria, further down to South Africa. Other cables are coming down the other side of the continent. So bandwidth is coming to Africa for the first time in a large amount. And this is really driving a lot of changes in the market there. It means that the price of wholesale broadband is collapsing. It's coming down. It's still much higher than it is in other places around the world, but it's coming down very quickly. And this is working its way into retail. It's working its way into data plans. And so ordinary people are, for the first time, beginning to be able to afford both the device and the internet connection. Now, the truth is the price of the devices has come down faster than the price of bandwidth. So for many people, they are able to get the phone because at around $41, you're beginning to reach pretty far down the economic ladder. You're not really reaching the poorest of the poor yet, but you've come a long way from when that phone cost $800. So what we're seeing is a big take-up of this. Just in terms of an example of bandwidth, I was in Lagos, Nigeria, and I did a broadband speed test from my hotel room, and I got 9.33 megabits per second. I asked my friend at the same moment in New York City to test his connection, and he got 8.38. So that may be more of a comment about the sad state of the internet in New York City, but I would say as well, when I tweeted these results, some young tech people in Nigeria said, "Oh, no, that's not true. The government's tricking you. It's a fake. We don't really have that kind of internet." Well, nobody was tricking me, but the truth is I was at the 5-star conference hotel with a very nice internet connection. I don't want to leave you with the idea that everyone in Nigeria has a faster connection than everyone in New York City. The point is that the bandwidth is to the country, and now it is being distributed and is beginning to impact the retail market, and that's going to have a huge impact on society there. One of the things that we should think about then is, what are people doing when they get on the internet for the first time? And so let's go back to those original ideas. Are they searching for prices for their crops? Are they reporting malaria outbreaks? And this is why I say that kind of thinking clouds your mind. The truth is, what people are doing, the top sites across Africa are Google, Facebook, Twitter, Wikipedia, local newspapers. The point is that when people come online for the first time using an inexpensive mobile device, in a very large way, they are joining the global conversation, and they're doing all the same normal things that we all do. They're going on Google to find things out. They're doing some shopping. They're on Facebook. They're on Twitter. They're sharing ideas with their friends. They're reading local news. The real story of the internet in Africa is the rise of a digital middle class. For the first time, people are getting access to information, and that's a very, very powerful thing that's happening. And what you need to know about this is that the ongoing march of technology is making real and usable internet access available to tens of million people already today. And if we think forward 20 years or possibly even 10 years, we're going to have massive connectivity to the real internet for hundreds of millions of people. And this is also important. These are people who do not speak English or French. There was a period of time when people thought, oh, well, local languages aren't that important because everyone with a computer in Africa can speak English or French or Portuguese. That is no longer true. It wasn't true many years ago. It's definitely no longer true now. All these hundreds of millions of people are coming online, and they need resources. They need information in their local languages. Even if at school they may be learning in another language, you always need information in your mother tongue. So one of the things that we've done that's been a very successful project is called Wikipedia Zero. And what we've done here is we go out and we negotiate with mobile carriers in the developing world to persuade them to offer access to Wikipedia with no data charges. The idea here is that for the poorest people in the world, we want them to be able to get Wikipedia for free. It doesn't cost them anything. This has been very successful. The number of carriers that we have signed up, in theory, there are over 500 million people who have access. I say in theory because many of those people who we're working with their carrier, they're still on an old Nokia feature phone that doesn't even have the web. And so even though in theory they have access, they won't really have free Wikipedia until they upgrade to a smartphone. That will take some time. But it's coming, and it's coming very, very quickly. So one of the interesting things is that when we started offering this and we started doing some deals like this, we had this really interesting thing happen, which was spontaneously a group of teenagers in South Africa heard about this, and they started an online petition asking their carriers to offer the same thing. And we've got a little video of them reading their online petition, and I just want you to watch what happened.
Hi, this is a letter which me and my classmate wrote to access to Wikipedia for free. It goes as follows.
Open letter to Cell C, MTN, Vodacom, and ATA.
We are learners in grade 12 at Sinenjong High School, Joslovo Park, Milnerton, Cape Town.
We recently heard that in some other African countries like Kenya and Uganda,
Cell phone providers are offering their customers free access to Wikipedia. We think this is a wonderful idea and would really like to encourage you also to make the same offer here in South Africa.
our school does not have a library. 90% of us have cell phones, but it is expensive for us to buy airtime.
So if we could get free access to Wikipedia,
it will make a huge difference to us.
Normally, when we do research, Wikipedia is one of the best sites.
And there is information on just about every topic.
Think of the boost that it will give us as students and to the whole education system of South Africa.
Our education system needs help, and having access to Wikipedia would make a very positive difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
English. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is an open letter to the youth of South Africa and the student of Sinenjongo High School in Cape Town.
You recently shared a video asking South Africa's cellular networks to give their customers free access to Wikipedia.
We think this is a wonderful idea.
We know that many school children in this country don't have access to research material, which can make excelling at school so much more difficult.
That's why MTN is proud to be the first South African cellular network to make Wikipedia free.
Great, thank you. So now I'm going to move and shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk about some of the lessons that I've learned through growing the Wikipedia community. And it's one of the most interesting things about Wikipedia is that it has become a major global household word. All around the world, people know this brand. It's very, very famous, but yet we've never spent any money whatsoever on traditional marketing or advertising. It all spread virally by word of mouth, by people talking about it, by people linking to it online. And that's a very powerful shift. The idea that you need hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to launch a name worldwide is no longer true as long as you've got a story that people can talk about. I want to talk a little bit about some of the ways I think about these kinds of things. And this is kind of a way of kind of getting you to think in a new way about it. And so one of the great stories of how a change in the infrastructure makes other changes possible. And this is something that is very often something that when you're trying to forecast the future, you're trying to think about what's coming next, you can think not just about the major infrastructure changes, but also what are the second order effects, and sometimes they're quite surprising. So interstate highways. So in the US, in 1919, it took 62 days for a convoy of army trucks to cross the US. They were doing an exercise. They wanted to test to say, if we had an emergency on the West Coast, how long would it take to get supplies from the East Coast? And so they did this big operation to see how long it would take. And working as fast as they could, it took them 62 days to get across the country. That slowly but steadily improved, and then from 1956 to 1991, there was the construction of the modern interstate highway system. So if you've been driving in America, you know we've got these huge, boring highways that go forever, and they're very easy to drive on. And what this meant is, obviously, it had a lot of impact, and the main impact people first thought about was on the auto industry, gasoline industry, all those kinds of things. But there were actually huge second-order impacts, and one of those was McDonald's. McDonald's grew with the growth of the interstate highway system, and part of the reason was that as people began to travel more for the first time, you're traveling in some remote place and you don't know the restaurants and you don't know the local brands, you see a familiar sign and you say, oh great. So a lot of the early McDonald's growth happened because of the interstate highway system. They would locate near the highways and then people would say, oh okay, McDonald's, I've heard of that. Now I have to say there is a bit of a humor here. I didn't make this graph, I just found it on the internet. And it's quite easy to show that McDonald's exploded in growth from 1950 if you start your graph in 1750. So I apologize for the graph, but it really makes my point quite clear. You know, if you're not quite sure about a point, just cheat on the graph, and it gets you there. But this is a very well-known phenomenon, a very well-known part of the history of the McDonald's company. Another example, Uber. So just as the interstate highway system gave rise to second-order disruption and opportunity, ubiquity of smartphones is giving rise to new disruption and opportunity. You know, your first-order effect of the smartphone is, of course, people are on Facebook all the time, they're on Google all the time. But who would have thought that the rise of the smartphone would disrupt the taxi industry? And what we see is exactly that happening. The technology makes possible a new way of getting cars to transport you somewhere, and it's grown very, very quickly because it actually replaces an old technology that didn't work so well. And so this is the kind of thing that I'm always thinking about, is what are some of the first order and the second order effects? So one of the ways that I think about this, and I've got some examples, there are three major factors that I've identified that I think are really incredibly important for rapid growth in the modern world. So one is word of mouth. If you go back to 1950, if you really, really loved something, you probably told 5 people. Today, if you really, really love something, you're probably going to post it on Facebook, and the average person on Facebook has 314 friends. And so people are able to tell more friends about things that they love, or, by the way, things that they hate. And so word of mouth has become very powerful. 2 brands to note, Tom's Shoes and Warby Parker, they both have a similar type of concept. Tom's Shoes, when you buy the pair of shoes, they donate a pair of shoes in the developing world. Warby Parker has the same concept for eyeglasses. And both of these brands managed to grow very, very quickly because they had a great story. Consumers would have the shoes, and they're quite distinctive looking, and people say, oh, your shoes, and they say, oh yeah, it's really cool. They give a pair in the developing world when you buy a pair. So people like the feel of it, but it's also something that they wanted to talk about. I talked to the founder of Tom's, and he told me that in the early days, it was like an massively unfair advantage, whereas he would have had to go, and it was very difficult to get placement in the major retailers. They would have already heard the story from a friend, and they say, oh yeah, great, Tom's Shoes, my friend was telling me about this. We want to carry the shoes because it's great for our brand. So great stories lead to great word of mouth, and that's very, very powerful now. Viral platforms. So I'll give 2 examples of what I would call a viral platform. And the emphasis here is on the word platform. So change.org, this is a site where you can go and create a petition to complain about something, and you can try to get people to sign it. And Kickstarter, you probably know Kickstarter. It's the best uses of Kickstarter is for the design of a new product. Somebody's designed something new, but as a small entrepreneur, they don't have the financing in advance, and it's very hard to raise money from your rich uncle or whatever to get started on the project. Instead, on Kickstarter, you can take pre-orders, and so you can prove that a market exists. And if you do the Kickstarter campaign and nobody buys, then you don't end up producing, and you didn't waste all that effort on an untested product. So it's really been a great boon to people who are doing cool little design projects that would be very difficult to finance otherwise. Change.org, the interesting thing is, with Change.org and Kickstarter, is that the owners of the platform do not know which products or which petitions are going to be successful. They may have some idea with experience, but you never quite know what's going to go viral. I'm sure everybody here saw the Ice Bucket Challenge videos, and that was a genuinely grassroots phenomenon. Nobody set that in motion. It just caught the public's imagination somehow. I was looking at first, I was like, who's the genius viral marketer who set that up? And the deeper you dig, you find out nobody. It just happened. It's kind of a remarkable thing. And you never know what that's going to be. If you go to change.org, you'll often see, oh, here's a petition about global warming. You say, oh, that will be very popular. That's an issue people are concerned about. And you see it goes nowhere because it's quite routine and it doesn't excite somebody. And then you'll see something that touches the public nerves. There was one petition I saw, a woman, a single mother, was complaining about bank fees in the US. And she thought the bank fees were unfair, and she wrote a very nice letter, and it got huge, hundreds of thousands of signatures, and actually forced the bank to change their policies because she touched a nerve on a very obscure issue, you might think, but it was something that affected a lot of people, and she managed to have it go viral. So with a viral platform, you benefit from having lots of people on there because you never know which one is going to go viral. You could never think of all the possible things that could be popular. Instead, you have the platform. So we see this at Wikipedia as well. You know, sometimes pages get incredibly popular and we wouldn't have predicted. At Wikipedia, it's generally news-driven, but the same phenomenon applies. And then finally, the long tail. And Amazon is the classic example of this. Amazon sees 20 to 35% of their sales from books that traditional retailers do not carry. Some estimates say it's up to 55%. And so the concept here is that if you go into a traditional bookstore, even quite a large one, they only have physical space for a certain amount of books. The most obscure books they can't carry. But if Amazon has even one copy of a book anywhere in Europe, they can easily deliver it anywhere in Europe by their business model. And so they're able on their website to carry a huge inventory. And it turns out that those very obscure things are very profitable for them, because even though each individual item has low sales, in the aggregate, it's quite a lot of sales. And the way they structure their whole business is to make that very cheap and very efficient to do. Similarly, on a web platform, the long tail applies very much. At Wikipedia, the traffic to very obscure articles, you know, you may have an entry that only gets 200 readers a year, 2,000 readers a year. In the aggregate, it adds up to a huge amount of traffic, and so that's very important. And in the digital world, you can host the long tail because typically it doesn't cost you anything extra. It's very low cost to maintain sort of an infinite level of inventory of whatever it might be. So in thinking about all these things and in thinking about the design, I'm working now on a new business, which I'm very excited about and spending lots and lots of time on, and it's called the People's Operator. So we're a mobile phone company that tries to take advantage of these concepts, that tries to really be a very modern business model. So the concept of it is that 10% of your monthly bill goes to a cause that you love, and you can pick any cause, any charity that you like. You can even pick a very local cause. Ultimately, your local school, any kind of a nonprofit cause is easy to pick. And then 25% of the company's profits go to charity. And so what we're trying to do is create word of mouth. So word of mouth meaning we have a great story. Nobody else gives 10%. Our prices are the same as everybody, so we're not charging you 10% extra. We do it by cutting out the traditional marketing budget, so no TV commercials, billboards, etc. We spread virally word of mouth. We have great stories to tell from our cause partners. Our own story is a great story to tell. And I'm working on the digital platform that will allow people to tell their friends, to communicate what we're doing, and to raise money for whatever it is that they care about. So we're building a viral community to let people do this. There's a lot of different moving parts to it. Some of this is built, and some of this is still in process. I think pretty much most of the main features will be done. You know, development, it always takes longer than you think, but December, January is when a lot of the main things are going to finally be finished. But it's already up and running. You can go to tpo.com and become a member. It looks very much like a Facebook or Twitter. People post their status updates. They invite their friends to join. You can post photos, hashtags, all the kinds of things that people do. We have people on the network already from 150 countries. We have a lot of charity partners who are on the network, and they're trying to connect with their fans and try to get more people involved. We are inherently a donation platform. One of the things that a lot of causes complain about with Facebook or Twitter is, yeah, we have this huge social media presence, but we have no ability to monetize it. It's just not a natural part of the platform for them to be able to use it for fundraising. So they say, well, look, I've got 500,000 likes on Facebook, but what does it really mean? What can I do with that? And we want to try to answer that question. We want to say, well, actually, in this case, you're connecting with people in a context that is all about donating money. It's all about getting the phone service and dedicating 10% of your phone bill to the cause and really trying to make some real progress in that way. We've got a few famous people on the platform. Paulo Coelho, he posts fairly often. And that's another area we want. We want to say to celebrities, say, look, you're doing a great job of promoting yourself on Facebook and Twitter. There's nothing wrong with promoting yourself. You're a celebrity, that's your job. But why don't you promote yourself as well in an area that you're also promoting the cause that you care about, so that you can really connect with your fans in a way that's more personal to them and more meaningful than just, you know, whatever you ate for dinner last night. So it's quite interesting, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and we can have some questions about it later. But that's it. Invite your friends. Thank you.
And we actually will have some questions in a few seconds. Maybe gentlemen can join seats over there,
sure.
so that we can have a nice and cozy talk together.
Great.
Well, actually, if you are ready for some questions, just raise your hand and the hostess will provide you assistant with mic. If you don't have any question for the moment, maybe François, you can throw the very first one.
I have 53 questions, Jimmy. So let's start by the first one. I was fascinated how you describe this knowledge sharing evolution, and you have been a fantastic promoter and observer, I guess, since the last 14 years. At the same time, in large company, we talk about open innovation. That means Apple has done very well with all the apps. How do you see the evolution in the next 5 years and the previous 14 years of the boundaries of intellectual properties that makes an asset of a product or a company with the open innovation and also the share of all the knowledge that people bring to a website like Wikipedia?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of different aspects of that, and I think it really does depend on the specific context. So there are certain contexts where intellectual property in the traditional sense of a patent, a copyright, a trade secret is still incredibly important, and that's never going to change. At the same time, in many cases, people are finding it to their advantage as a pure business decision to be more open and more sharing of their intellectual property with partners, with researchers, etc., simply because they can get so much more benefit out of it. We're a highly interconnected world, and I do think that companies who try to be too secretive, who don't partner well with others, try to do everything themselves, really can have a very, very tough time of it. Obviously, it does depend on the specifics, and you know, every industry will be different. I'll give one example in terms of the movie industry. So in the early days of Wikipedia, that was still the era when fan pages on the internet with pictures of Darth Vader or whatever were very, very controversial because they're using some of the copyrighted assets, you know, so you post a photo or something like this. As it turns out, people came to understand, actually, these are our best promoters, that these are the people who are going out and talking about our works, building the buzz. You want to give them the assets. So now, for example, at Wikia, my for-profit wiki company, we partner with the major studios, and they want to give our communities assets. They want to give them early access to things because they know those fans are the ones who are going to really sell the product. And the real product, of course, is the film itself, people watching the movie in the theaters and then afterwards. Now, obviously, they wouldn't be happy if our fan sites started trying to post the entire movie. And so it's not that intellectual property is unimportant, but that boundary line between what do we want to protect? You know, do we want to try to get a license or get permission from everyone who ever wants to put up a photo of Darth Vader? That's dramatically changed. Now they say, no, well, whatever, it's a picture of Darth Vader. Spread it everywhere. I want people talking about Darth Vader. That's really important. And so that's an area where it's shifted, and I think in many, many cases we see that kind of shift. There's also a lot of other things, you know, when we think about piracy. You know, one of the things that has been very strongly proven and is really making a huge impact is that piracy, the best way to combat piracy is to actually sell your product. You know, piracy of certain TV shows is very, very high because they're not available in certain markets. And so if you don't make Game of Thrones available in India, people in India are going to pirate it. But if you sell it to them, they will buy it. And it has a direct impact. It's not 100%, of course, and you're always going to have people. But hey, when I was a teenager, we used to make cassette tapes, mixtapes. You know, you'd get the most romantic songs to give to your girlfriend. that was technically piracy, but nobody cared. And still today, you'll always find teenagers who find ways to download music that they can't afford and things like that. But that's a really relatively small part of the overall market. Most people are perfectly happy to buy from iTunes, from Amazon Prime, from wherever. It's just easier. You don't have to deal with questionable websites and things like that. And if a few people are kind of evading the system, well, that's always happened. So the most important thing, I think, to think about in terms of intellectual property is that just wishing doesn't make it so. Sort of wishing. I'm not ready. I'm planning to roll out. I'm going to do a US launch of my TV show, and then I'm going to do the European launch a month later. Okay, guess what? You've just invited piracy. But if you say global launch worldwide, then the piracy market never seems to develop. So it has impacted business, but it doesn't destroy business.
Just looking at you guys, if you have any question, again, just please raise your hand and we will provide your assistant with a mic. Si vous voulez poser vos questions en français, vous avez absolument le droit de le faire. Il n'y a aucun problème sur la langue. Et je tenterai de me faire fort de les traduire en anglais. Je vais juste avoir besoin, formidable, d'un peu plus de lumière dans le public, justement pour pouvoir vous voir. Et en effet, vous voir lever les mains si vous souhaitez poser une question. If you don't have any question, let me ask you one actually. You know that this very forum and summit actually puts players, traditional players versus disruptors. And as far as France is concerned, if you take the example of Uber, for instance, well, Uber has been Uberized by its own chauffeurs in France. And Twitter just laid off some of its staff. So there is a huge amount of criticism of the Silicon Valley model right now in Europe. Do you think that the disruptors are being disrupted?
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, I think those are somewhat different cases. Twitter obviously has certain problems that are not about the fundamentals of user participation online, but really more about their place in the competitive landscape. And they've got a lot of challenges ahead to figure out what they're doing. I'm not a particularly famous person, but I'm a little bit famous, and I accidentally noticed that I have on Twitter, I don't know, 110,000 followers, and I have about double that on Facebook, and I didn't even try on Facebook. It's just Facebook is much more engaging and much more, possible. On a website most people probably haven't heard of, Quora, which is a question and answer website, which is really more my people. Twitter's great if you're Kanye West and you just throw out some crazy thing and people like to tweet it. It's not a good medium for me. I like to talk in paragraphs and so on. And on Quora, a relatively small website, I have more followers even than that. I have like 150,000 followers. So it's, Twitter has some fundamental structural problems. With Uber, wow, there's a lot to be said about Uber. I love Uber.
Tell me about it.
It's a fantastic business model. It is obviously the way of the future. There's a lot of entrenched interests who are trying to block Uber, and they do not have consumers' interests at heart. So that's the pro for Uber. The down for Uber is that Uber is an incredibly aggressive company, and they upset people, and they behave in ways that I think they shouldn't. And I think they cause themselves problems by being so aggressive. And so there you go. You just watch it unfold. I don't own stock in Uber, so I don't have a stake here. I just, I like clicking a button and a car comes. But in London, I use Halo, so this is for black cabs, and I love the traditional black cabs, and I think they've got a place in the market as well. I think in many cases, what needs to happen is that the traditional cab companies, the traditional, chauffeur-driven, they need to modernize as well. They need to actually get in the game, and they've missed the boat to some extent. So.
But when it comes to the model again, well, it's kind of an inception of disruption. But where do you think disruption? Where do you see it heading? Can we disrupt forever?
Yeah, of course. We've been doing it forever. It's the human condition. I mean, there have been periods of history, very sad periods of history, where innovation was squashed and people fell into a very same way of life with no human progress. But there's a lot of innovation that is out there right now that's incredible. I'm very excited about. So I just mentioned two things I'm quite excited about. One, driverless cars, which actually talk about disrupting the disruptor. Travis at Uber is terrified about driverless cars. He's investing a lot of money to get there first because he believes that Google will get there first and that Google won't sell driverless cars. they'll just give cars as a service, and it'll be a direct competitor to Uber. So he's really worried about that. But I mean, driverless cars, however the business model shakes out, it stands to improve human safety, by orders of magnitude. Humans are very, very bad at driving, and I'm not just talking about me. All humans are very bad at driving compared to what is possible, and so it strikes me as a fantastic, innovation that really is, and it's one actually, if you want to think in the way I was talking earlier about second-order impact. So obviously, if you think about driverless cars, you think, oh wow, that's going to have a big impact on the taxi industry and Uber. That's the first-order impact. Think about things like pizza delivery or sending your children to school. Maybe you don't have to take your children to school. You just send them in a pod, and then the teachers meet them at the door. I don't know, but I know the social implications of what teenagers do. I mean, in the U.S. in particular, there's a lot of concern. Teenagers have a very high rate of death from driving and drinking and all that sort of thing. And wouldn't it be great to put your teenager in a car that will get them there safely and back home? That's really amazing. So that's one I'm very excited about. And the other is gene editing. Gene editing is really a major, major breakthrough that's going to have huge impact very quickly. It will have impact on some diseases faster than others. One of the low-hanging fruit would be, for example, sickle cell anemia, where you can go in and get the stem cells that produce the blood cells that are not functioning correctly. You edit it to remove the sickle cell problem, and you put it back in, and now suddenly you're producing good blood cells, and that person can actually be 100% cured. That is going to happen very, very soon, and that's just one example. The implications for fighting cancer, for fighting, there's amazing stuff on the horizon, and we're finally going to make some real progress at some very aggressive cancers that are untreatable otherwise, et cetera, et cetera. It's an amazing time to be alive. But obviously with gene editing, there are suddenly these enormous and very real ethical questions, which for many, many years people have discussed, but only as hypotheticals, like what if you could do this? Now you can, right? Now it's entirely possible. It hasn't, all the details haven't worked out, but we're this close to say, go into the sperm and egg cell and make some edits to change the genetic composition of children. Well, where that's very easy is to say, look, here's a couple. Both of them have a recessive gene for something that is likely to cause a major birth defect. What we have been doing is kind of selecting the gene cells. Why don't we just go in and edit, the fertilized egg or whatever we want to do? Like, we can actually solve some of these inherited diseases, and it's incredible. But that means we can also choose how tall the children are and other things like that, intelligence. For me, there are ethical questions. I think having the next generation of children be more intelligent than we are sounds like a very good idea, because there's a lot of stupid people in the world, and we can do something about that. So.
But actually, that brings us to the debate of biohacking, but even furthermore. Now, there is a trend, and we will jump to your question in a second, but I just want to follow up on this one. There is a huge debate, actually, about transhumanism. It seems that transhumanism right now is the Godwin point of the digital world. When you want to throw something at someone like, okay, no, you're transhumanism, you're talking about transhumanism, and you just stop the debate.
There's a word I'm not understanding.
Oh, le point Godwin, because I'm mixing French and English at the same time. So thanks for commenting on my English accent on Twitter, but this one was totally, right. Well, actually, so where is this philosophical debate as same as digital debate heading?
I still am not understanding.
Transhumanism. Transhumanism. Transhumanism.
I don't even know that word.
Well,
she's disruptive.
I'm stuck. When you think about Google and okay, so it's going to take some time here. But,
I'm so sorry.
No, it's cool. Ray Kurzweil.
You should go on Wikipedia,
You should Wikipedia.
How do you spell?
Let's find on Wikipedia.
When you think about Singularity University,
yes,
and all those guys,
yes,
with le transhumanisme.
Transhumanism.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, great. Now I'm ready. Sorry.
So the question is,
Yes.
we're entering an era where we are having questions at the same time, both philosophical and digital. So
Yes.
where is it heading?
You know, what I always tell people is that I'm a carpenter, not an architect. And so I like to build things. And I get asked these very deep guru questions. And I feel like my thoughts on them are no different from anyone in the audience. I mean, I think that we are coming into an era where we're going to have to grapple with genuine artificial intelligence, which is, you know, it's about 30 years away, but it's important to understand that it's been about 30 years away for about 60 years now. We've been wrong, you know, all along. It always seems like you can forecast it for 30 years away, and it turns out to be much harder than we realize, but eventually, you know, we'll get there. The computational power of computers, the ability to do sort of deep machine learning is improving all the time. It's a huge question, and I don't have any answers whatsoever. You know, I think we are going to see incredible human benefits from the beginning of it, but it can be quite scary at the end. So, you know.
And I think they will do a way better job at asking questions than I do. So we first have a lady maybe with a mic here.
Yes.
Can you just stand up
then
and so that we can
after.
hear you and see you loud and clear?
Okay.
He's been queuing.
Hi, my name is René Sauvager. So just a quick question.
Are you safe?
In the digital era, we are using a lot of tech-savvy words like disruptive innovation, smart social media, analytics, and cloud. And during your very excellent presentation, you have pinpointed the fact that the successful business model is really when you're making a significant impact to the communities and actually improving people's lives. So we are talking about very tech-savvy things, but isn't the human that should be at the center of all of our innovation? And isn't that the recipe for the successful business model? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things that I think was very successful for Wikipedia is that it was really born from something that I needed, something I wanted, and something that I saw that a lot of people wanted. We first saw this amazing invention of the internet, and people, you know, I think most people, when you first saw the internet, you thought, oh, this is amazing. Like, we can meet people from around the world, we can share knowledge, we can learn things. And then in the dot-com boom, it seemed to be mostly about pop-up ads and selling dog food and things like this. And Wikipedia kind of harkened back to that human piece of saying, what do people really want? What do people want to do online? And really starting from there, not starting from a business model even. I mean, Wikipedia started with no business model, which is why it's ended up with no business model. You know, we're a charity, and we get donations from the public to keep going. And it was just about saying, wow, people really want to find things out. That's one of the core human needs. People like to learn. So I absolutely think so. Yeah, of course. Like, you really have to start with a need that people have, a way of improving their lives, and that's the only way to be successful.
So,
we have another question up there.
Hello. Thank you very much. My name is Malcolm Corbett from London, about to get gigabit broadband to our apartment, so very good.
Oh, wow. Where do you live? I'm going to move.
Woolwich. Hyper optic.
We got nothing like that in Notting Hill, so.
Soon. My question is, Wikipedia, I think, has been an absolutely fabulous invention for the sharing of knowledge, for extending our ability to just find things out instantly. It's been brilliant. What do you think we need to be thinking about next in terms of being able to share and extend knowledge to even more people? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it in my talk. I think that mobile, so the understanding that the next billion people who come online are going to be coming online on mobile devices for the most part, that will be their first interaction with the internet, is important. Like, that's a key thing to be thinking about. It's also important, even in the developed world, to understand that people are increasingly turning to mobile first. And so that's really quite important. For us at Wikipedia, we think about this in terms of how can people contribute So it's easy enough, like Wikipedia, if you want to read Wikipedia on your mobile device, it's fantastic. There's no problems. Obviously, you could complain about this or that little detail of our interface, but in concept, it makes a lot of sense and it works and it's fine. But contributing on a mobile device is always going to be very different. And so we're thinking about what are some ways that people can contribute on a mobile device that make more sense there so that people can participate there. So I think grappling with the changes in technology, particularly mobile, is incredibly important.
Last question, Gary?
Jimmy, an easy one for you. I'm Scottish, right? So we're a country generally associated with creating the modern world. But as a casual observer, it seems that all of the innovation today is coming from the west coast of the US, it's coming from China, it's coming from the Far East. What do you think we have to do here in France and more broadly in Europe to step up and be relevant and not be outmaneuvered and out-digitized by everybody else?
Well, first of all, I would slightly challenge the premise. It's something that Europeans often say, but I think there is a certain unfortunate negativity around Europeans' own opinion of their own tech industry that is not completely true. Having said that, clearly the West Coast is still the leader, and there's no question about that, but there's a lot of amazing things going on in Europe. One of the reasons I live in London is that I think it's a fantastic tech hub and a great place to be for tech. But one of the things I would say is that one of the things that Silicon Valley does really well, and partly this is just a Silicon Valley thing, but also it's partly a deeper cultural thing, is an embracing failure. And this can go very, very deep culturally. So I'll talk about a specific example that is not Europe. I was speaking to a group of young tech entrepreneurs in South Korea, and really foremost on their mind, and I mean young, in their early 20s, foremost on their mind was how difficult it was with their families, that their families did not approve of them doing a startup. Their mothers were worried, what if you fail? It's going to be a disaster. You're going to embarrass the family. You could get a job at Mitsubishi. You could get a job at Hyundai. With your grades in school, why are you throwing your life away doing this silly thing? And so forth. So there was a real sense that they didn't have any cultural support, and that if they failed, the stakes were very, very high. If you go to California and you sort of join a startup incubator and you fail, most likely you're going to have met some other cool people doing interesting projects. A lot of these, particularly at the incubator stage, you'll have 2 or 3 people, 4 or 5 people working on a project that after 6 months they realize it's not working, but in the process, as a part of that community, they met these other cool people and they go, oh, actually we're going to go join them and we're going to combine our efforts and we're going to do this and that. And that kind of thing, where there's a tolerance for the idea of failure, means you have the opportunity to innovate. You have the opportunity to do things. Some of this has to do with support at universities. Some of it has to do with tax codes and things like that. One of the questions we should ask is, how long does it take you to get the paperwork through, and how difficult and expensive is it to start a business? And typically, I haven't looked into the numbers in recent years, but I remember a few, I know what the answer is in the US. In the US, you can go online and create a company in about 20 minutes, and now you have a company, right? It has no money, it has nothing in it, but the legal formalities of just creating a company are just trivial. It's just as trivial here. It's an entry in a database, but oftentimes there can be a huge month-long process, and you have to hire lawyers and all that. I think that's improved in some parts of Europe. I'm not an expert on it, but I remember when for Wikia, my for-profit wiki company, we have a development office in Poland, and there were sort of specific reasons we chose Poland because of people we knew there who we wanted to work with. But we also thought, Poland, it has a reputation, it's very business-friendly. Even in Poland, it took a month to get the company set up. I mean, it was ridiculous. And so there's that kind of thing that can change. But I also just think this toleration for failure, encouraging people, young people, and say, hey, look, you could spend 5 years working at a big company, and you could spend 5 years doing your startup. 5 years is going to happen no matter what you do. There's nothing to be done about 5 years happening. You might as well do something interesting. And then at the end of it, if it doesn't work out, I've just hired someone in London, and one of the reasons I hired her is she launched her app company. She raised some money. She raised, I don't remember exactly, £120,000 from a rich uncle or something like this, and made a valiant go of it, had some modest success, and then ultimately wasn't able to succeed and had to close the whole thing down. For her, it was quite a heartbreaking experience, but I thought, wow, you're a fantastic person to hire in a startup context because you understand the scramble, like you're not someone who comes from a big company where you just think, oh, I'm just working on the project and someone will tell me what to do and I carry out my tasks. It's like, no, every day you have to decide what's going to happen and what will happen if you don't do it right and so on. And that, frankly, not everything works out, and that's okay, we're experimenting here. So I think there's a lot of pieces of that, and I would like to see a lot more acceptance of failure and innovation.
Let's have one final question and then we'll move on our debates on MOOCs.
Bonjour, Clémence Vallée de Montpellier. Je vais poser ma question en français, ça sera plus sûr pour tout le monde.
J'espère que vous ne prononcez pas le mot transhumanisme parce que je ne pourrais pas le prononcer 2 fois.
Non, vous inquiétez pas, ça va le faire. Donc voilà, je voudrais revenir en fait sur cette pratique qui se développe de créer son projet sur Internet sans avoir forcément d'argent à investir initialement. Et c'est souvent possible grâce aux opérations et au système de crowdfunding. Donc je voulais savoir un petit peu ce que vous en pensez et avoir votre opinion sur ce système de financement de projet.
You actually talked about Kickstarter during your keynote. So where do you see crowdfunding heading? Not really, but how do you see this new crowdfunder scene developing, especially when you want to launch a project, right? C'est surtout quand vous voulez lancer votre propre entreprise. C'est pas que sur du projet artistique, en fait, c'est tout type de projet. Especially when you want to launch your own startup or project. Is it still the place to be for startups? Crowdfunding?
I think it depends. I think in many cases, yes. I think that not every business model works for Kickstarter, Indiegogo. I didn't want to single out just one, but Indiegogo. In some cases, like in the UK, you can do crowdfunding for equity. There's certain rules around that, but you can actually do that. Not every project is good for it, but for the projects where it makes sense, it makes a huge amount of sense. The one that I singled out is if you've designed some new physical product and you have the design, but you know that you need to, in order to produce 1,000 of them at scale, it's going to take a certain amount of investment. I think in today's world, you would be pretty crazy to just go and produce 1,000 on the hope that people like it and will buy it. Because pretty soon you find out the hard way and now you've got 1,000 useless things that no one likes. Instead, you go on Kickstarter, you get pre-orders, and now you've got a really strong indication, which then you can take to get financing, to get investors, et cetera, et cetera. But not everything is like that. Some purely digital things, a membership website, things like this, it's a little bit harder to see. But I do think, like, if you think beyond just the simplest, Kickstarter or Indiegogo or any of the platforms, but you think about the concept to say, how can I test my business idea with real customers before I invest money by getting them to commit in some way, gives you a good indication. And so I do think it's still very, very important. And for many, many projects, I think it's a valid way to go. And we're actually seeing sometimes big companies are beginning to do this kind of thing. They also need to test market, and this is a valid way of doing it. So.
Yeah, it's also a test and learn platform for many, many projects.
Yeah, exactly.
Better than R&D.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for your questions. I'm sorry, we really have to run into the debate on MOOCs. I'm so sorry about that. We have literally no time right now. But Jimmy's staying with us, so you might have a chance to ask him a question right after the debate on MOOCs. Thank you so much, François, for your question and introduction and welcome speech. Jimmy, you're staying with us, but I want you to stay safe, so stay in that very chair. And we will join by Beth Porter, who is Vice President of Product at edX. It's one of the leading US online courses platform. And Christophe Fournier, President of Marketing at Montpellier University IAE, one of the best university, you told me, yeah, that's it. You actually will tell us how professors are using MOOCs, especially. Stay on these chairs, and I'll grab my own, so we'll all be safe.
Yes.
Safety first on this stage. So actually, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about this new trend, this new trend in education, MOOCs, which is literally massive open online courses. Are they actually, is it safe? Okay, I'm coming back. Really? Okay, there we go. Oh, and you need a mic, absolutely, and you will need a mic to speak, so I'm going to ask the régie to bring you some mics so that we can hear from you. If not, it's going to be a shame. Je demandais à la régie de nous apporter des micros pour que Beth Porter et pour que Christophe Fournier puissent s'exprimer, sinon ce serait dommage de ne pas pouvoir les entendre. And maybe during this time they're bringing the mics, maybe let me throw you a first question. We are going to talk about these new trends in education. And again, the main topic of this forum is traditional platforms or traditional players versus disruptors. Are those guys disrupting education from your perspective? Jimmy?
Me? Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of really exciting things going on. Sometimes actually from the traditional players are having a big impact. So MIT OpenCourseWare, quite famously, is one of the large bodies of content that they've put online for free that people can go and do things. I think there's a lot of possibilities in the future of people doing interesting things. So I think we're still very much at the beginning. Some of the main questions that come up here is, the question of certification. So yeah, you take some course online. What does it really mean? Is it proving something to a potential employer, et cetera, et cetera. So there's lots to discuss.
And actually, we are going to start with you, Beth. Could you please remind us what edX actually really is? We heard from Jimmy that it was actually a mix between MIT and other American universities. But how did it become such a success? Or become
actually, MIT was jointly founded by edX was jointly founded by MIT and Harvard. The two sort of natural competitors down the river from one another decided to join forces and create a MOOC site together. And then they invited many other universities to come join the consortium with them and to put all their courses online with the original aim of offering courses for free with access to anyone from anywhere. So the original intent was really to have a free public scholarship in much the same way that Wikipedia was there to be free, open content for people to enjoy with no cost. And it sort of had three goals and continues to pursue three goals at the time. One, access, as I mentioned, but two, also improving campus education. So it's both a disruptor, providing an alternative pathway to an education, but also working very closely with partners to raise their level of providing education to residential students. So we're committed to that part of the mission as well. And then third, and this can be both in the MOOC context, but also in the SPOC context, SPOC meaning small private online course. These are the ones that get offered to the students at the residential schools as a way to collect data and to learn about learning. So one of the huge parts of the mission is to be research-oriented and not just to do the work, but actually to learn something from it and thereby make everybody better at the end.
And so far, what did you learn?
So far, we've learned is that we don't know anything yet, but that we're going to keep trying. No, it's not entirely true. What we've learned actually is several interesting things. One, peer learning is completely undervalued in almost every online context. It's a huge both motivator and a huge accelerator of people's knowledge. And there's actually some folks who are using our open source platform, which is actually the same thing that our public site is built on at Carnegie Mellon University, who are studying peer-to-peer interactions to see how they can be used as interventions when people are having trouble learning in an online course. So that peer-to-peer interaction space is really fascinating and one that we're going to keep studying with many of our partners. We really just provide the data and the pathway to that research, and then our partners pick up the ball, and they're doing a lot of the research that we then all benefit from.
And just for us to be able to size what edX actually is, how many students do you actually have today online? I mean, nationalities, language?
Sure. On edX.org, which is our site, we have about 5 million and growing learners and about 500 and growing courses that have been offered, and that's in 6 platform language and growing over time. we also have open source platform, which many have adopted, including one here right in France, the France Université Numérique, which is a state open edX instance for many of the universities across the country. And of those, we have 15 different languages offered in 30 countries and over 1,500 courses on those on those sites worldwide. So that we expected that to eclipse us quickly, but we didn't know how quickly, and we want that just to grow as much as possible. That's why we're open source.
And we'll go back to it in a few seconds. Christophe, Beth mentioned FUN, France Université Numérique, and it seemed that France actually discovered MOOC like 2 years ago with this very launching of this MOOC platform when it comes to the French universities. But are we actually really lagging behind here?
Yes, FUN was launched 2 years ago by a former Minister of Research, Geneviève Fioraso, and now FUN has got more than 140 MOOCs. Some were played several times, and more than 1 million of people attend and follow this MOOC. So France is not late compared to the US when talking about MOOC.
And could you actually describe us what you are actually doing at IAE in terms of MOOCs?
Okay, the IAE is a public business school which is part of the University of Montpellier. University of Montpellier is a new one. It's the result of the merger of Montpellier 1 and Montpellier 2. And in this business school, we have cooperated a MOOC with the support of the IT services of Montpellier University to propose one MOOC about Salesforce management, but the IAE is proposing other MOOCs. There is one which is running currently about startup and crowdfunding. Another one is ready, it's about accounting, and the fourth one is probably will launch about selling.
So actually, if and correct me if I'm wrong, but MOOCs and those kind of learning disruption seems to be part of a real experience when it comes to sharing economy. And nowadays, when we're talking about the digital economy, we're way more talking about the experience services such as Uber again, Airbnb, or other different companies are trying to make for their customers. And in this very experience thing, they're mixing both what you can feel in real life and the online experience. So from my perspective, it might be quite challenging when you're a teacher trying to make your students learning via MOOC and at the same time getting their engagement and feedback. How do you try, to cope with the in real life and online situation?
I'll take that one, but I think you have something to add there too.
This is a big challenge. I had to face big challenges when you are transferring offline learning to online learning. The first is when you are teaching, maybe you have 1 hour to describe something. When you've got a MOOC, you are probably doing a video and you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes to present this concept. So you have really to shorten and to go to the main elements, critical elements. After, there is one thing which is an advantage but could be a drawback also. So learner is alone. He's at home or somewhere. It could be nice, but it could be also a problem. So you have to struggle against attrition because it's not very easy to be alone to learn something. So one main issue is to limit attrition and maybe to create a community, to create engagement. And this is a big problem here, how to develop engagement with students. So you've got forum, which could be either synchronous or asynchronous. I have developed some hangouts just to propose some live conference and to invite a learner to interact in live with somebody who are providing some experience. I've got many other examples, but Beth could be...
Sure. Yeah, this is definitely something that we're really concerned with. I mean, the MOOC is by definition massive, and yet what people really want is to feel like it's local. Right? They want it to be a simulation of what they're accustomed to in traditional learning environments where, they can just ask somebody off to the side, hey, what is he talking about over there? And so what we've been trying to do, and I think this is, we're not alone in this, our other MOOC providers are doing the same, is trying to find ways to collect people whether it's in cohorts that have common interests right when they enroll, through surveying before you actually get into the course. Do you want to finish this course? Is this something you just are exploring? Are you a student or somebody who just wants to hang around with some other people who have like interests? And likewise, when the course gets started, letting people collect themselves in teams or study groups so that they can feel an immediate sense of engagement with others when they're in the course, and then can learn from each other, even just feel solidarity. And these ways are just some of the small ways, and as I mentioned before, we're still studying the effect of peer learning. We have a peer assessment vehicle, a piece of assessment that you can add to the course if you want to, which lets you at least connect learners as they assess each other's work. And so all of these different mechanisms help you feel connected to the course, and that's really what we're trying to do. And whether somebody finishes it or doesn't finish it, that was the original debate about MOOCs. Oh, they didn't finish it, therefore MOOCs are a failure. We don't think of it that way at all. What we're trying to do is create learning experiences, as you say, and help it feel more intimate as time goes on with these new techniques.
Jamie, do you want to jump in on the question of those blurred lines between offline and online education? And again, it ends up to the question of bringing engagement to a whole community like in Wikipedia.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, the one comment I would have is that when we consider that attrition question, early on, people, you know, there was sort of this vibe of like, oh, this is the death knell, like this is never going to work. There's a very high rate of attrition. And I said, well, wait a minute. I downloaded a course from Oxford University about English history because I just moved to London. I think there were 31-hour lessons or something like this, and I watched about 5 of them, and I drifted away. No problem. Like, I'm not trying to get a degree. I'm not trying to become an expert. I just live in England, and I thought it would be interesting, and it was. I watched 5, and maybe someday I'll watch the rest, and that's fine. It's free education. I'm a better educated person than I was. And so depending on the purpose that a student has, then it could be perfectly acceptable to have a high attrition rate. Maybe I would have said, actually, it turns out I'm really bored by English history, and I thought I was interested, but I'm not, and that's also fine. It didn't cost me money. I didn't get a bad mark on my record by exploring that topic and realizing, you know, because at university, if you sign up for a course and you pull out too late, you may get a very bad result, and that's a shame. And then, of course, there is concern about attrition, on the other hand, if we look at the cohort of people who say, I'm trying to complete this course because I need a certification or I need a certain skill set that I'm trying to acquire, but I couldn't because, and whatever the because is, let's think about how to solve that with more community, more interaction, whatever it might be. So I think what's great about this is, you know, the initial flurry of, ooh, MOOCs, it's this amazing new thing online, is giving way to a much more realistic assessment where we say, okay, now let's think of all the different use cases. What are people wanting to do with this kind of thing? And how do we make sure that we're, you know, addressing the needs of various audiences in an appropriate way?
I almost never get to the end of a Wikipedia article either, but nobody's going to penalize me for it.
Exactly. And in fact, I think in some cases, the actual design of a Wikipedia article, it's for that purpose. Like, one of the things we do is in the intro, you should get the basic information, and now you get deeper and deeper, and you get more and more intricate, and maybe you're like, well, this is far more than I ever needed to know about Richard Nixon. I just couldn't remember when he was president, you know, and you just get what you need to know. So I think these are, you know, these are evidence that we're beginning to mature in our thinking about this. And, you know, particularly when you think about, you know, there's disruption in education that is the disruption of formal education, and that is a thing, but it's probably not nearly as big a thing as the explosion in informal learning. The informal learning has just absolutely exploded, whether it's very informal of people who just go reading in Wikipedia, you know. They never had a course on English history, but they just got fascinated and they read dozens of articles about it. And nobody's taking note of that anywhere, but it's great. People are learning things. And that's probably the more important disruption that's gone on. Traditional education probably needs a little more disruption.
Yeah, so. That said, we've actually started to offer credit, and it has really changed our frame of mind about what we're doing with respect both to our partners, who are the creditors today, but who may not be the creditors tomorrow. And so when we've been talking about, you know, how do you provide credit, who's the creditor, can you get financial, in the United States it's very important, financial aid is a big deal for people who are trying to gain access to education who might not otherwise have access. And so credit really raises the ante, and it also somewhat raises the disruption level, because at that point we're starting to talk about unbundling education from being a thing where you pay a tuition, you go to a college, you study for 4 years, something mysterious happens in the 4 years that you can't describe except with a piece of paper called a transcript, and that has no information on it. And then you go get a job that probably isn't even related to what you studied in college. And so that's a very disruptible thing, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of people's opinion. And so we should be unbundling and figuring out how to make all the component parts of education available to people incrementally as lifelong learners. They shouldn't have to do it in 4 years. They shouldn't have to do it with this great sort of sense of drama and mystery associated with it. And yet, the momentous event of being in college is still a thing that people value. They covet that. It's a part of growth and development, the experience. And so we're trying to figure out how to blend those two things together so that people can have a little bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real, I mean, just sort of thinking about it from a way that universities don't often enough think of themselves, but it's a branding issue as well. So I have a 14-year-old daughter. I would love for her to go to MIT or Harvard, but I want her to go there, right, and come out in 4 years as a Harvard graduate or an MIT graduate, because that's an important, meaningful milestone in life that feels very, very different from me than if she just goes online and takes a bunch of the same courses and gets the same education. Because I'm not sure that, and I don't think I'm being silly, but maybe I am. Maybe I'm just being old-fashioned. But I do think that there's something about that experience. I mean, one of the reasons to go to MIT is the incredible number of incredibly smart kids who go there, and the people you meet in that context, and they're all a bunch of geeks and so on and so forth, all the things that MIT is famous for, Harvard as well, but in a slightly different brand, right? They both have a different flavor to the way they're perceived and who their students are and so forth. And it's hard to replicate that just sitting at home. At the same time, and it's very expensive, right? At the same time, we are in an era where it would be appalling if we said, in order to preserve that little piece of culture, which is important, we want to say, yeah, so therefore, even though we have the technology to deliver MIT and Harvard courses to millions of people for free, that we just cut them off to preserve the brand.
And
like, that doesn't make sense either.
Brand first and monetization second, because actually education is also business.
That's right, and so what we're trying to, sort of model with various kinds of ways that we offer courses is, what is the price pressure that we can provide? How much can we dampen the pressure in certain markets that are less, well served? How can we raise the price in other markets that can bear that price? How do we create equivalent value? No, there's so few people who will ever go to MIT and Harvard in this life. Maybe my 15-year-old daughter will go there too with your 14-year-old daughter, but they probably won't, or they may not. Who knows? Yeah. But no, there are so many more people who can experience, a Harvard MOOC or an MIT MOOC, and that's something that we feel really committed to being able to provide.
I will say, the immediate reaction that a lot of people have, which is that these schools cannot offer large public education with certification and everything because they'll ruin their brand, is probably a mistake. And the example that I would give, and it's not a perfect analogy by any means, but there is a similarity, which is the TED conference and the TEDx conferences, but also the TED conference, and they put all of their speeches online. And I mean, you can go, there's amazing talks by amazing people, and they're all on YouTube, and they're just freely available. And you would think, well, then why does anybody pay $6,000 to go to the physical conference anymore? But guess what? Demand has actually gone up. The price has gone up. Like, the waiting list is longer because it's so much more famous, and because people do understand, watching it online is amazing, they're great talks, but wouldn't it have been magical to be there in that audience when Yo-Yo Ma did that thing? It's incredible. And so similarly, you watch, Harvard courses and you get a great education. That doesn't mean people are going to say, oh, well, then why bother going? They're going to be like, oh, if only I could have actually been there. That would be amazing. So then Harvard can raise their prices even more, which is a bit scary.
Let's hear from Christophe for a few seconds, and
Just want to say that education is a market, but specific market, and especially in France, when Montpellier University is a public university, and my business school, the IAE, is a public one, so we don't have tuition fee, and so the MOOC was totally free. Maybe we are thinking about asking people for paying just to have a certificate, just because we've got technological dispositif to implement, just to be sure to check the idea and to be sure that people are doing the exam in good condition. But this is a market, but specific market. So for my university, MOOC is much more as a showcase to promote the university and say, okay, we are good in MOOC, we are good in digital teaching, so good image and things like that.
And
It's
actually,
very important for France and for public university.
We have this double system with the tuition and tuition universities. But actually, what is a day-to-day job of teachers at Montpellier University IAE? Do they have to teach, like physically at the same time, and then go on camera for the MOOCs part, or what is it to be a teacher now?
I think they do what they want, and I'm teacher of marketing, so I'm sometimes focused on retailing industry, and I would like to do the same. In retailing industry, some shops are still offline, some shops are totally online, and you've got blended models, and all these models are coexisting, and I think it will be the same for education. Sometimes it's better to have online, for example, when you are working and you want to focus on a specific topic, maybe an online topic, and not be MOOC, but SPOC, which is a more small and private dispositif. It could be totally online because you do when you want, you work when you want. If you want to work at night because you are free, it's okay. Sometimes people, and especially young students, need social ties and need to come in a room just to meet the teacher, to meet other classmates, and to have support from the teacher. So I think this is MOOC. For me, the image of MOOC is freedom. So you can do what you want, and I think my colleagues do what they want, and they can combine MOOC, and I have asked my students to watch the videos of MOOC at home, and then when they come in class, I just have to respond to some question and to focus on exercises. So I think I'm saving time that way. So my colleagues teach the way they want.
And just to follow up before going to you, Beth, what is the percentage of MOOCs and the percentage of real teaching? Do you put all the lessons or the classes you're giving at Montpellier online with MOOCs?
MOOC is very, very small. What we could talk about is distance learning or e-learning, which is more SPOC. It depends on the school, and it could be quite important. It could be coexisting, or it could be close to zero, it depends. Okay. But we've got the CNED, the Centre National d'Enseignement à Distance, which provide a lot of distance learning program and curriculum. It depends.
Beth?
Yeah, at MIT, just a small statistic, impressive statistic really, they have 95% of all students studying on campus using Open edX, their own MIT X instance of Open edX on campus, and they're doing this as a regular, so there's no realtor teaching versus MOOC teaching. It's all the same thing. It's just blending together seamlessly now, where faculty are really finding utility and being able to have a platform to just push everything out to students and then take advantage of some of the automation and peer connectivity and other features that are part of the platform. And then it takes away some of the mundane work that they might have to do otherwise and really lets them focus on deeper topics. So this is impressive. And I think at every level of comfort that each university gains, that percentage is going up and up and up. MIT just getting there a little faster than everybody else.
We actually were talking a few seconds ago about the fact that education is a market, a business, and there's numerous brands quite challenging on this very market. When we just focus on MOOCs, you have Udacity, Coursera. I mean, those are your Ubers, if you may. Did they change, those players, your strategy when it comes to online?
Oddly enough, I mean, obviously we pay attention to all of our competitors. We watch them closely like a hawk. But our strategy really hasn't changed. fundamentally, we still believe, and I think this is a place where we just need to continue to drive with our partners forward in access to as many learners as we can get to as possible. They don't all have to be high-intensity learners who are going for credit or going to be there until the very end of the MOOC. Even if we just reach somebody with simple access, that's good enough. But pulling down the age of people who can get access to MOOC or up, right now we have between 8 and 98 age-wise in the MOOCs. But so this is still fundamentally a part of our vision, and we intend to continue offering courses for free as long as the business model can sustain it, and possibly forever. And then the other two things that I think separate us from our competitors, although we're all trying to get to self-sustainability, so even though we're nonprofit, we know that we and our partners need to make some money to make it worth the bargain. One, we're open source. I mentioned that earlier, and so for us, this is an extremely important part of the innovation strategy. We expect our partners to help us innovate. We are not going to do it all ourselves. We know that. That's almost an arrogant point of view, really. And so we know that we're going to be innovating with our partners on the open source platform. The second thing we do is that we provide all of the data. Every single click, every single learner activity, all of it is available and open back to our partners so that they can use it to examine the real-time effects of teaching with MOOCs, the long-term effects of teaching with MOOCs. Whatever they want to study, they have more data than they can possibly handle, I think. So the data, it's this whole sense of openness and wanting to be in tight partnership with our consortium members. It's very important to us, and I think it's what separates us in a lot of cases from our competitors.
Jamie, do you want to jump in?
No.
No, really? Okay. So actually, Christophe, you don't want to jump in as well? Okay, so next question. Let's take a look at the future, actually, and what's coming next for you, MOOCs, and your brands, actually. What's next when it comes to edX?
Well, some people mention this, and it almost goes without saying, but we need to become more mobile, and we need to become mobile faster. We were late in coming to mobile. We were so fixated on the advanced types of things that we could offer and the sort of the strides we were making in delivering STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics courses that we kind of waited a long time. Now we're going to catch up. Everybody wants to be able to take courses online, even rich assessment types, rich activity types, rich media types. Those all should be available on iPad and phones, and we intend to get there as fast as we possibly can using our partnerships and on our own. So that's one of the places where we just we are just going as fast as we possibly can, breakneck speed. The other thing that I think people fail to maybe realize in open, we have this extra challenge of taking every single open source contribution that we have and allowing it to scale. So we have to work very closely with our open source contributors who may have amazing, amazing ideas, but who have never thought about accessibility, language support, things that would scale beyond just a handful of people in a course. And so we spend a lot of time educating our community about scale and how to help those things be reachable, by everybody. And then I would say the last thing, which we haven't mentioned much yet, but is hugely important to the mission of making the course feel more intimate, is personalized and adaptive learning. It's really hard. It's really hard to do at scale in particular, and it's hard to make it feel very genuine. And I think what what we've concentrated on up till now has been analytics. What's happening in the course? What can I look at? How do I know whether it's working? And it's all sort of self-reflective. Did I do a good job? Am I an effective teacher? Is this content any good? And now we're going to move quickly past that to predictive and prescriptive analytics. Something that actually says, hey, to the learner, hey, you've done a thing, and it tells me something about who you are as a learner, or where you should go to next, or what might be best suited to you in encountering these course materials, or who in the peer context you could connect to. And so these are really advanced areas, particularly very large scale courses. And so when we look at ahead in our technology advances, these are the things that come to mind. I'll just make one more mention, since Christophe mentioned it before. Being able to verify somebody's identity globally at scale for everybody who would come to our door to earn credit is a very hard problem to solve.
Absolutely. No, just the future of the MOOC. We did not mention the evolution of the job of teaching.
Yeah.
One main issue here is, okay, we've got teaching team, and I coordinate myself with colleagues 3, 4, 5 times a year just to know which topic do they teach exactly and to avoid some overlaps and things like that. But definitively teaching, you are doing that job alone, and you are preparing your class with books, with internet, with different resources, and you're building your course the way you want. When you are preparing and operating a MOOC, there is definitively a team job here, just because this is massive and open, so everybody needs to understand what you are saying. And sometimes you are saying things for myself, since 20 or 25 years, you are quite sure that the way you are defining a concept is very clear, and when somebody is listening to you, say, well, what do you want to say here? You are very unclear here. So you need to have a very hard job before capturing the videos, for example, and you need to work with pedagogical engineer and people like that. But after, you have to work with IT expert, people, audio, video, etc. And this is really, really a team job. And this is the main way. Okay, a MOOC is still teaching, and I'm sure that we will need teacher for many and many years, but the way the job is done could change and need more competency, or I don't know if we can be expert in video or things like that, but we must be able to coordinate and to manage a team.
There is a small college in North Carolina, Davidson College. It's a member of our consortium, and they describe this phenomenon as when you become a MOOC instructor, you need an entourage. There's no way that you can do all of the nitty-gritty, all the bits and pieces yourself, and so their advice to new MOOC creators is get yourself a team. Get yourself an entourage. Trying to do it yourself is insane. And that you really need that help, and you can't become expert in all the things that you just mentioned. You can't. And so you should rely and you should embrace the idea that you're now a team, not just a person sage on the stage saying the thing that you know.
Yeah.
And actually, just one final question to you, Jimmy. And so I think I would have saved time for the gentleman who wanted to ask you a question earlier. I don't know if he's still with us in the audience, but anyway. You're both part of the knowledge sharing system and ecosystem, MOOCs and Wikipedia at the same time. We were talking about artificial intelligence a few minutes ago. Could you use artificial intelligence to, put the limits and the boundaries of knowledge sharing years ahead?
Well, not yet. So one of the areas that people think about, the rise of machine intelligence of various kinds that might be helpful is just a simple question of translation. So translation into different languages. And to date, for Wikipedia, it's not very useful. The reason is there are language pairs where machine translation is getting to be kind of okay, but it turns out that they are from the, you might say, economically important languages. So to translate from, in my experience, translating from Spanish to English, just using Google Translate is kind of okay. I mean, you see the occasional funny error, but it's kind of okay. But we don't really need help in Wikipedia translating from Spanish to English or English to Spanish, because we've got huge communities doing their own work there. Where it would be useful to us is in the languages of the developing world, where there are real lack of people who can do the translation and a lack of involvement, but it's completely useless. I mean, try translating English to Zulu. It's just not, nobody's investing in it, so it's not happening. So in that area, we're not seeing a whole lot. I think there are opportunities, I would say, in discovery, in education, in helping the reader find things that they would find interesting. This isn't any kind of like really serious artificial intelligence, but it is algorithmic. Just as, Facebook, for example, does a pretty good job of figuring out what you want to look at and showing you more of that. And so if you interact with a certain set of friends, they understand that those are the friends that you're closest to or you're most interested in talking to, and they'll show you more of their feed. And if you don't talk to someone for a while, you don't see them as much. It's actually a problem in some ways about Facebook. But we expect the same thing from Amazon, for example. You go to Amazon and they know your past purchase history and they recommend products to you based on that. And it's pretty good, you know, they're actually able to do that. At Wikipedia, we don't do anything like that yet, not for editors and not for readers, but I think we will in the future, just to say, hey, you know, like if you've been editing in this area, here's some things that need work, here's some things that you're probably interested in. Instead of having to go and dig it up yourself, we make suggestions to you, and that can be quite useful. So there are ways that I think we will use algorithms, but the dream of saying, you know, well, here's the latest 12 research papers on a particular development in science, go and write a general interest Wikipedia article from it, and have a machine do that. No, we're a long, long, long way from that, and there's no suggestion right now that there would be any help with that. Similarly, in the MOOC world, I would say, you know, the idea that we're going to have a computer that suddenly is the best lecturer in English history, it's so far off that it's not even planned for. But saying, actually, what can we learn? So when you're generating all this data, to say, actually, we know that, you know, that lesson 4, I mean, this is the simplest thing. Lesson 4 in this series, people have a hard time getting those concepts. So we need to go back and review lesson 4 and really dig into what is going on. Adaptive material, you know, so if you're learning a language, this is fairly obvious, right? If you've already learned a word and you've done it correctly a few times, why are we wasting your time doing it again in a very linear course? You know, it can be adaptive. And that stuff is not easy. So to go from, you know, this is to get an entourage, right? You might be the best, you know, French language instructor in the world, but you have no idea how to create software around that. And the people who are good at making software may not really know much about teaching French. And, you know, obviously there's been commercial markets in that type of software for a long time, but there's still huge areas that are yet to be learned about how do we apply technology in education, given the abilities and the capacities that we will have today and in the future.
Quick word with you, Beth.
Yeah, there are two things I can think of right off the bat that you mentioned. One is knowledge mapping. I mean, this is the big area that you need to spend time on as a human if you have to do that yourself to build an adaptive framework for your student to learn against, and machines can do that. And that's a huge advance, and so when we apply that, we can, you know, make that advance quickly, and we don't have to spend time having people do it. And then the second thing is peering. Think of, you know, dating in education, right? We know how to match people up. We know how to compare variables, and we know how to sort of make algorithms that say, okay, well, if you're online at the same time, maybe we should put you in a peer group together. If you have the same language, we should put you in a peer group together. If you're both here just as explorers, let's put you in a peer group together. So that sort of peering and matching is a big thing that we just can get for free from a machine, and we would never do by hand.
Many thanks to you three. It was a pleasure to have you on stage, despite the chair matter and the accent, but it was great, I think. Si le jeune homme qui était encore là, qui avait une question supplémentaire pour Jimmy Wells, est encore dans la salle, je lui ai gardé du temps pour qu'il puisse la poser. Dommage pour lui. Ah bah d'accord, du coup on change la place. Alors, du coup, est-ce que tu peux te lever et un micro arrive jusqu'à toi? And that would be, oh, and there's a Wikipedia t-shirt.
What is the plan about linked data in Wikipedia? Because there is a lot of a big part of Wikipedia that have been translated in the DWW15 project. But what is Wikipedia going to do with it?
With which data?
With linked data, RDF
linked data.
Linked data?
Yeah. Got this one.
That's a good question. I don't know. As is typical for the Wikipedia world, everything is very open. There are a lot of different research projects going on by academic researchers, by Wikipedia community members, etc. I think that, you know, there is the possibility to do a lot of really interesting things with the linked data. You know, I mean, just I have an immediate thought. You know, the interlanguage links, right? And what I was saying is things that we don't do algorithmically at all to help editors. So suppose that we see an editor has spent some time translating from French to Swahili. So we say, here's a person who knows French and Swahili, and they're interested in doing translations. We don't do anything to proactively and algorithmically help that person find good projects to work on. But there's a few fairly obvious things. So popular articles, like maybe we should say, hey, here's some popular articles from French that we don't have in Swahili. Here's some popular articles in French on a topic similar to topics that you've edited in that you might find interesting that need to be written in Swahili. Would you like to do that? There's a lot of use of the data of Wikipedia that currently we're doing nothing with and that we could be doing really interesting things with to help editors find worthwhile projects to work on. There is a lot of work going on at the foundation to think about this and research this. There's a big push to think in the tech team. I was just there a few days ago and talked to some people there about the question of discovery, like how do people find things at Wikipedia and how can we make that process better? Because people come to Wikipedia today typically through Google, and they come and they read one article and they click on some links and do this and that. But there's probably a lot more we could do to really help them find, you know, we have a travel site, we have a lot of different resources under the whole Wikimedia umbrella, most of which get no attention, partly because people can't find them, they don't know about them. So it's an open-ended answer to an open-ended question.
Okay, thanks.
And it's really all time we have for really need to close the session. Thank you so much for your question. Again, thank you so much for joining us on stage and debating about MOOCs, about sharing knowledge, and about Wikipedia. It was a pleasure, again, to have you on stage. I think they deserve an applause, and you're released from duty.
Great, thank you.
And now it's time to conclude the very first day of this DigiWorld Summit, not even the summit, DigiWeek.
Absolutely.
And we will need a mic for François Barraud in a few seconds, if the regie can...
Mic.
There you go.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Marjorie. Thank you, Christophe. Thank you, Beth. And again, Jimmy, already gone. Thank you, Jimmy. Fantastic, inspirational, especially for the young entrepreneur in the room. Je vais parler en français. J'espère que vous avez trouvé ce débat inspirant. C'est formidable d'avoir quelqu'un comme Jimmy Wales avec nous, surtout pour lancer le DigiWorld Summit qui commence demain, et en plein milieu de cette DigiWorld Week. Alors, pour ceux qui sont invités ce soir, je vous donne rendez-vous à 19h30, c'est-à-dire dans 10 minutes au musée Fabre. On va continuer les festivités, bien sûr, les DigiWorld Summit attendees aussi. Alors, pour des questions de sécurité, et bien évidemment, il faut être inscrit, parce qu'on a eu pas mal de discussions avec les pouvoirs publics pendant le week-end pour pouvoir sécuriser donc, cette soirée. Mais je vous encourage vivement à venir. On va en plus découvrir des entrepreneurs de la région. Vous savez que Montpellier est une ville très dynamique, la région est très dynamique. Il y a une organisation qui s'appelle French South Digital qui regroupe en fait tous les entrepreneurs numériques. Je crois qu'il y a quelques photos quelques noms qui vont être là. Donc allez les voir, ce sont des jeunes. Il y a des étudiants aussi qui sont là. Donc show them some love and attention. Voilà, demain matin, on va commencer par un café à 8h30 avec des croissants, les meilleurs de la région, m'a-t-on dit. Et on va commencer à 9h pile parce qu'on a beaucoup de débats et de présentations demain. Donc, à tout à l'heure au musée Fabre, à 7h30. Merci encore, Marjorie,
De rien, je vous en prie,
pour ce lancement. Et bonne soirée et sans doute à tout à l'heure. Merci.